So, in our passage, Jesus was approached by the Sadducees. You might think, funny looking lot. Who were the Sadducees? Well, they were sort of like a bit of a mixed party, really. There were some of the priests in Israel. They were Sadducees. Some of the wealthy aristocrats. What's an aristocrat? Anybody know? Aristocrat? Go on, Michael. Yeah, landowners, the privileged classes. Some of them, they all were formed this little group known as the Sadducees. And they were actually in the time in Israel. Remember, Israel was a country occupied by the Romans. They were very happy to mix in with the Romans, and basically, they were people for whom life was pretty good. And what they didn't want is anything to disturb that, because actually, why do you want to change things if things are going rather well for you? Now, that affected their sort of religious belief, because, well, they like the rest of Israel, considered themselves Jews, particularly some of them were priests, and they accepted the 5 books of Moses, the Pentateuch as we call it, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers and Deuteronomy, their Bible at the time. But they sort of accepted it in a very empty sort of way, a bit sort of, well, take it or leave it. Yeah, take this bit, but that bit's not really serious. We don't want that because that's a bit too challenging. And they just edited out the bits of religion that didn't suit their purpose at the moment. And the consequence of that was, well, they didn't believe in angels, they didn't believe in spirits, and, well, they didn't believe in the resurrection. Because actually, if you think about it, if you believe in a resurrection, that's a whole different perspective that can challenge how we live now. And they didn't want to challenge anything to challenge how we live now, because life was going very well. So what they did is they came up to Jesus trying to be very clever, and they said that there was a lady and she married a husband. Yeah? Now in those days, if under those circumstances the husband died without having had children, then the brother was obliged to marry the wife to carry on the family name. Doesn't apply, of course, these days, but in Israel at the time, where carrying on the family name was very important, that was how things were. And in this case, they said, the story they made up, he is a man and he's married his wife, but lo and behold, he dies. Never mind, in steps the next one, but unfortunately he dies as well. So, not a problem. There's another suitor, but he dies as well. Well, so it goes on. Another one. And to be honest, you'd have thought this guy would have got a bit wary by now, wouldn't you? But no, it goes on. How many have we got now? Young children have all gone. Okay, so we got 5, 6, here we keep going, 7. And finally, she dies off as well. So the question is, she's had 7 husbands. Come the resurrection, if everybody comes and is raised to life, whose wife is she? She's had 7. Jesus' answer actually falls into 2 parts. 2 parts, if you noticed it, in the answer. The first one was, what Jesus is saying is, think about heaven. In heaven, everything is different. Come the resurrection, everything's different. Think about it. What do we look forward to when we eventually meet with Christ and we're with him for eternity? Things like, there's no more suffering. That's here on earth, not in heaven. There's no more pain. The pain and the upsets we suffer, that's here on earth. There's none of that in heaven. And most significantly, there's no death. You know, when we are raised to everlasting life, it is, well, everlasting life. So it goes on. So there's no death. Now, think about it. What are the key things about marriage? What is the key purpose about marriage? Why did God create marriage? He created it on earth so that children could be born. Now, children have to be born here on earth, because if they're not, the human race dies out, doesn't it? Because all of us are growing older and one day we'll pass away. But that's not the case in heaven. How do people enter heaven? Well, they're raised up on the last day from this life. So, it's not indeed. What is the key purpose of marriage? What we say in the marriage service, creating a home in which children could be nurtured and raised. And it's the best way of bringing children up. There's no need for that. Not in heaven, because in heaven everything is different. So, therefore, there's no need for marriage. Now, that is not to say, and it's important to say this, that is not to say that if a couple have been married together 40, 50 years and one passed away, will I know the other one when we come to resurrection? Doesn't mean that they won't be connected. In fact, 1 Thessalonians 4:17 talks about how when Christ returns, those who are left will be raised up to be together with those who've gone before. So yes, we will be united. We'll be united with the people we've known. We'll be united with the people who've gone before. But that relationship will be different. And that's the first thing Jesus said to these Sadducees, who actually just didn't want to rock the boat. And the second answer he gives is he refers back to the book of Exodus. They sort of believed in the Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers and Deuteronomy. So the book of Exodus, he said, okay, look at your book of Exodus. Chapter 3. Moses is out in the wilderness and he sees there's a bush on fire. So he goes over towards it. But the bush isn't being burned up. How do you get fire without any fuel? God was present. It was the presence of God. And God spoke to Moses out of this burning bush, and he said to him, I'm the God of Abraham and of Isaac and of Jacob. Father Abraham, the one he made the promise to. Hundreds of years before, you'd expect him to say, I was the God of Abraham. You know, back when Abraham was alive, I was his God. And when his son was alive, I was his God. And then when his son took over, I was his God. And now I'll be your God. But no, he doesn't. He says, I am the God. I am the God of Abraham. Abraham, who was walking with me then, is with me now. Isaac, who was walking with me then, is with me now. Jacob, who was with me then, is with me now. It's a wonderful hope. There is something beyond this life. Something better. We'll be living in relationship with God in the way that he always intended. You know, think about it. I'm one of those people who never knew my granddad. My granddad died long before I was born. As a child, I sometimes wonder what he was like. One day I'll know. Because we will all be united when the resurrection comes. That is good news, isn't it? Really good news. Unless you're the Sadducees. You see, if we've got this wonderful hope, if we've got this trust in God that we're so looking forward to, it's got to change our values and how we think now. And that lot didn't want things changed, because actually life was pretty comfortable as it was. So they didn't want a resurrection. They didn't want anything that would rock the boat. They enjoyed life as it was. And the idea of a resurrection, an idea of something beyond, threatened that. Threatened their values, threatened how they think. You know, there are people like the Sadducees today. They don't want anything to rock the boat. They're quite happy to have a religious faith so long as it doesn't challenge how they live. They don't want to focus too much on what might be beyond, because it has implications for how we live now. They like to do like the Sadducees did. They like to say, oh yeah, we'll take the Bible, but oh, you can't believe that bit, and you don't worry about that bit. Let's just focus on these bits that suit us now. It's a real danger. Now, today is All Saints' Day. We have a wonderful hope. We've got a certain hope. Who was here on Monday night when we did the light party instead of Halloween? Yeah? Anybody remember what did it say on the coffin? Anybody remember? Go on, Deb, enlighten us. Rest in peace, rise in glory. We've got that hope of rising in glory. It's a real hope. Let's hold on to it. Because actually there are many people in our society who are too like the Sadducees, who miss out on that reality.